This is CBC Vancouver News.
Air Canada says it has reached a tentative agreement with the pilots' union, avoiding a potential strike or lockout that would impact thousands of travelers. 4 people have been charged with manslaughter and forcible confinement in a deadly home invasion in Burnaby last year, where a 19-year-old was killed. And
we're really giving hope and a future to a wide suite of wildlife species.
Hundreds of acres of land near Cranbrook is now a dedicated conservation area. The move aims to better protect animals like elk and grizzly bears. Hello, thanks for joining us. I'm Janella Hamilton. We begin with breaking news. Air Canada says it has reached a tentative 4-year collective agreement with the Airline Pilots Association, avoiding a potential strike or lockout that would impact thousands of travelers. Both the company and the union, which represents more than 5,000 Air Canada pilots, have said pay was one of the major sticking points during negotiations. Air Canada says terms of the new agreement will remain confidential pending a ratification vote and approval by the Air Canada Board of Directors. The airline says customers who used its labor disruption policy to change flights originally scheduled between September 15th and 23rd to before November 30th can change their booking back to their original flight at no cost, providing their space available. 4 people have been charged with manslaughter and forcible confinement more than a year after a 19-year-old was killed in an apparent home invasion in Burnaby. On June 29, 2023, Ryan Nagy was found inside a home near Canada Way and 17th Avenue. Police say the teen had serious injuries. He died at the scene. Another woman who has not been publicly identified suffered non-life-threatening injuries. Today, the Integrated Homicide Investigation Team announced that charges were laid in connection to the teen's death. 4 young adults have been arrested and will remain in custody until their first court appearance. Mediated talks between the union representing HandyDART workers in Metro Vancouver and its employer Transdev have broken off without an agreement following 15 hours of talks.
The financial status of the contract is we're just still miles apart. We have both stayed up till 2 a.m. the other night at the labor board trying to get something worked out. So both sides were hammering it out, but we're just not there yet.
Roughly 600 HandyDART employees have been on strike since last Tuesday. The door-to-door transit service serves thousands of people each day, many of whom have troubles navigating the conventional transit system. For now, all HandyDART services are paused except for essential medical trips. Before the strike started, Transdev says its final offer, which was rejected by employees, represented a 19.2% pay increase by January 2026. McCann says he hopes talks will resume next week. More than 3.5 square kilometers of land near Cranbrook is now a dedicated conservation area. And as the CBC's Corey Bullock reports, it's crucial habitat for animals like elk and grizzly bears.
A peaceful morning in Wycliffe Prairie. This will be the scene from here on out now that these lands are being conserved.
Well, there's that old adage, they're not making any more land, so where's the wildlife going to go? And by securing these ecologically significant lands, we're really giving hope and a future to a wide suite of wildlife species.
The nonprofit organization recently raised nearly $4 million to purchase 2 parcels of land near Cranbrook. Combined, they total more than 350 hectares. And Bossman says for the first time in 30 years, large animals like grizzly bears and elk will travel freely between conservation areas, a vital piece to keep the species thriving after decades of agricultural use.
This area here has a long history of human use and settlement.
For animals like grizzly bears, the connectivity between valley bottoms is crucial to their long-term survival.
Once populations become isolated, they become genetically isolated and then can become functionally extinct, which means they won't be sustained over time.
And the newly acquired Bummers Flats Maple Cross benchlands further northeast will connect to thousands of acres of conservation land, opening up more opportunities for people to enjoy things like walking and bird watching.
The opportunity for people to see, large herds of Rocky Mountain elk just on their way home from work or, on their way to the grocery store.
But he says now that the properties have been purchased, the management work begins.
We'll be doing baseline ecological studies of the lands to better understand the diversity of plants and animals that are living on these lands.
The Nature Trust will work with other nearby landholders like the province and the Nature Conservancy of Canada to develop a master plan for the connecting properties, so people and animals can enjoy the peace and quiet for decades to come. Corey Bullock, CBC News, Cranbrook.
A massive new housing project is expected to help ease the critical rental shortage that's left hundreds of families without a permanent home in the Cowichan Valley.
We have over 700 on our wait list waiting for a home. That's how serious our housing shortage is.
The River's Edge project broke ground this week and is being driven by Cowichan tribes. 2 buildings of 6 stories each will house 200 new units. The buildings will be located next to the river and will include First Nation artwork. About 30% of the suites are expected to be rented below the area's market rate. Tenants should be able to move in by the fall of 2026. A week before the official launch of the provincial election campaign, BC Conservatives are promising changes they say will bring more stability to the province's struggling forestry industry. Party leader John Rustad says a Conservative government would do away with stumpage fees paid when timber is harvested and put a tax on the final products that are produced instead. He also promised to review how wildfires are managed, as well as streamline the permit process and review BC's cost structure.
British Columbia is by far the highest cost producers of any jurisdiction in North America. We need to be able to drive down those costs so that our forest sector can actually be able to do the reinvestment, to be able to create the jobs and make sure that they're still there to be able to support our communities.
Meanwhile, in response, the governing New Democrats say eliminating stumpage fees would inflame the softwood lumber dispute with the United States and hurt forestry workers. In a statement issued by the NDP, Andrew Mercier says Rustad failed to support the industry when he was in government under the former BC Liberals. Potentially life-saving equipment has been installed along the challenging Grouse Grind in North Vancouver. Metro Vancouver says this week 3 battery-powered AEDs were set up along the popular trail as part of a new pilot project. There have been a number of cardiac arrests on the grind in recent years. The regional district says the devices are meant to be user-friendly.
So you would turn the machine on, it would start telling you and giving you instructions of exactly what to do. And the units that we have on the Grouse Grind are also, they have a little video monitor on there as well. So you'll actually be able to listen to the instructions, and they'll have a little video display of actually showing you as well on a display as to what you should be doing.
North Shore Rescue says having AEDs accessible can help prevent not just death, but also permanent disability. Metro Vancouver says if the pilot project is well received, similar measures will be expanded to other trails across the region. Organizers of a unique retreat for families who've experienced tragic loss in BC says demand is growing in part due to the worsening toxic drug crisis in this province. Our Sarab Sandhu spoke with a mother who says the camp has given her an outlet to grieve after the death of her teenage daughter.
Sue Blom-Cadot's 17-year-old daughter Micah died of an overdose 2 years ago, leaving her family drowning in a sea of grief.
It was really difficult to find resources to help us. Like there's all sorts of treatment centers that are private that are, extremely expensive.
About 8 months after Micah's passing, Cadot and her other daughter attended a grief camp in Princeton, aimed at helping families who have experienced tragic loss. There, she was comforted by other bereaved families, and for the first time, she saw Micah's sister cry in front of strangers.
She pushes feelings down, and it's certainly not the first time she really cried, but the first time she cried in public.
According to organizers, Camp Carey is the first of its kind in Canada. It's developed group activities for grieving families to help them overcome the feeling of loneliness and isolation, and ultimately help in their healing process.
We have therapists on site and we do grief support groups, but a lot of the intention of all of the things that we do here is to try to help people find connection with others who understand.
Mohan says the camp, which is run by a charity, is seeing a spike in demand. She says this year almost 100 families applied to attend the camp, but the program can only accommodate 36 families.
We're seeing a big increase in the number of families that come to us after a drug-related death.
Organizers of the camp say this year almost 1 in 3 participating families have been impacted by the worsening toxic drug crisis in BC, a number which they say was 1 in 18 just a couple of years ago. Mohan says it illustrates a broader need for bereavement care in the province.
If we don't break these walls of silence and give places and spaces for people to talk about these losses, then that can start to create challenges and problems for people.
Cadot says she hopes to see greater support for families like hers affected by the toxic drug crisis.
I just want there to be more help out there for people.
Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Tsawwassen.
Thousands of cases of breast and ovarian cancer could be prevented amongst Canadians if routine gene testing was more accessible. That's according to a recent UBC study. Michelle Gomez reports.
Peggy Pickett has been living with ovarian cancer on and off for 10 years, and she says her illness is terminal. She found out after her diagnosis that she carried the BRCA1 gene, which puts women at a higher risk of breast and ovarian cancer.
If I'd had genetic testing now, I could have been proactive and never developed the disease.
Right now, only those with a substantial family history of cancer can get tested for the BRCA1 and 2 genes, according to UBC researchers. But recent modeling done by the researchers found if this testing was offered to the entire population, it could prevent more than 2,000 cases of breast cancer and more than 400 cases of ovarian cancer per million women in Canada.
So the current structure of offering genetic testing only to people with a personal or family history of cancer misses about 50% of carriers in a population.
Pickett tried to get genetic testing 7 years before her diagnosis. She was told she was not eligible for the publicly funded test, and she couldn't afford to pay thousands of dollars for private testing. She's hoping the government will make the test available to everyone for free.
And it's such a simple thing to get this testing, to get the information. Information is power.
Dawson says the tests were historically expensive, but recently have gotten much cheaper. And the UBC study found that preventing cancer through free testing can save healthcare dollars in the long run.
It's very effective for cost saving in a health system, and that obviously is very appealing. We're hopeful that it could be employed.
Katrina Remacher discovered at age 34 she had the BRCA2 gene after her dad lost a battle to prostate cancer.
If my father had known that he carried the BRCA2 gene, his cancer would have been treated very differently than it was. And, he might be alive today.
After learning about her gene, Remacher got regular screenings and a preventative mastectomy.
Knowledge is absolutely power when it comes to BRCA. I do not live in any kind of fear about cancer. In fact, I feel extremely well equipped to prevent cancer and to deal with cancer.
The study's authors hope to meet with policymakers as they call for routine testing to be made more accessible. BC's Health Ministry says it is looking at ways to increase cancer screening in the province, including through genetic testing. Michelle Gomez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Student volunteers cleaned up parts of Vancouver's historic Chinatown today as part of the Uplifting Chinatown Action Plan.
We hope through this campaign we can attract more visitors and people around the areas to visit Chinatown.
Renovating and repairing Chinatown has been some of the city's top priorities, and the volunteer-led Chinatown Summer Graffiti Removal and Cleanup event this morning is part of that initiative. The third annual Black Business Excellence Awards were held at in Vancouver today.
We just want to recognize all the different people in the community who come out and provide products and services that really support and build a community.
The event showcased talent and entrepreneurship within BC's Black community. The importance of diversity and inclusion in the business landscape of BC was also highlighted. And the third annual Come Toward the Fire Festival has been held at the Chan Centre at the University of British Columbia.
So when we did the first year of the festival, which was 3 years ago, I think it went well enough that we all thought, this is something we want to keep going. So it's become an annual festival. This is the third year that we're doing it. And this is the first year we were able to offer it entirely for free, which is amazing. So it's always been free for Indigenous people, but this year is free for everyone.
The event aims to amplify Indigenous voices and talent. It featured Indigenous artists from across North America. Films were also screened, and there was music by Indigenous performers as well. After the break, why Donald Trump's comments on the campaign trail upset the Haitian community in the U.S. state of Ohio. We'll tell you after the break. Stay with us. Fear and frustration is growing in Springfield, Ohio, with Donald Trump amplifying false claims that the city's Haitian migrants are eating people's pets. Officials and police say there is no credible evidence to support those claims. But as Chris Reyes reports, it's heightening concerns among the Haitian community that they could be targets of violence and discrimination.
They're eating the pets of the people that live there.
Since Donald Trump made those statements on the debate stage, Springfield, Ohio has been on edge. Despite being debunked by city officials, Trump has continued to double down.
I'm angry about illegal Haitian migrants taking over Springfield, Ohio. You see that mess, don't you?
More than 15,000 Haitians have arrived in Springfield in recent years, lured by manufacturing jobs. City officials confirm that they are in the country legally under a protected status that allows them to work, protections which Donald Trump tried to revoke when he was president.
We don't have any idea where those rumors come from. And when I heard that, I was shocked and frustrated because nobody eats cats or dogs.
Viles Dorsey-Inville, who works with Haitian migrants in Springfield, has a message for Trump.
He has to control the rhetoric and the narrative that he puts out there, because all that he says can harm a community.
Over the last few days, several bomb threats have been called into schools, city buildings, and hospitals, forcing lockdowns, closures, and evacuations. Springfield's mayor said that one threat mentioned frustration with the city's Haitian immigration issues. President Biden defended the community.
Community that's under attack in our country right now. Simply wrong. There's no place in America. This has to stop what he's doing. It has to stop.
Musician John Legend, who is from Springfield, Ohio, took to Instagram to calm fears.
These people came to Springfield because there were jobs for them, and they were willing to work, and they wanted to live the American dream. I think all of us need to have the same kind of grace that we would want our ancestors to have when they moved here, with our Haitian brothers and sisters who move here too.
Illegal immigration is one of the top issues of the election. Trump has promised to mobilize the largest deportation in U.S. history if he's elected. Chris Reyes, CBC News, New York.
Heavy rain and flooding in Central and Eastern Europe has now claimed 4 lives in Romania. Dozens had to be rescued. Flooding hit 8 of Romania's 41 countries. In the Czech Republic, Prague's flood barriers were already being closed yesterday. Evacuations were carried out in southern Poland, where one river was 2 meters above the safe level. Each country expects more heavy rain, and in part of Austria, the first snow has arrived following the hottest August on record. Here we have a live shot of BC Place tonight. I'll have your full forecast coming up next. All right, it is time now to take a look at our weather. Let's begin with the temperatures around the province tonight. Starting up in Dease Lake, 2 degrees tonight, 8 in Fort St. John, 9 in Williams Lake, 6 in Golden, and 9 on the island in Victoria and Tofino. Moving into tomorrow, we are seeing a bit of showers tonight in many parts of the province. That's going to dry up for many areas. Fort St. John, that temperature going right back up to a high of 18 with a mix of sun and clouds for tomorrow, 16 with a mix of sun and clouds in Williams Lake for tomorrow, 18 in Golden, 18 in Victoria, 17 in Tofino, and here in Metro Vancouver, Sunday, we are going to see showers tapering off in the afternoon with a high of 18. Heading into Monday, that sun is going to peak out with a high of 19, but those showers are sticking around until at least Tuesday when it dries up and is a high of 15. A naturalist has captured an incredible moment off Vancouver Island when a harbor seal wound up in the mouth of a hungry humpback whale. Thomas Filopovich says this photo was taken during a tour near Machosen this week. The humpback named Zillion was feeding on what's called a bait ball at the same time the seal was, and when Zillion went to take a bite, the unlucky seal got sucked in too.
And all of a sudden we noticed she comes up to the surface with her mouth wide open and just constantly kind of does this, opening, closing. So I guess Zillion was sloshing the food or the water back and forth, trying to get the seal out of her mouth.
Filopovich says the seal seems to have escaped unharmed, though maybe a bit traumatized. He says the seal was never at risk of being swallowed since a humpback's throat is only about the size of a grapefruit. That is your late news for Saturday, September 14th. Thank you so much for watching. For news on the go at any hour, you can always head to our website at cbc.ca/bc. Have a great night.